Alright, 6277, 777 100 reference guidelines. This is the contamination cleanup target levels. Specific reference to the guideline listed below are made within this chapter. The guidelines are non-standard defined in Section 403.803 of the Florida State Statute. Use line guidelines is not mandatory. The guidelines are included for the information purposes only. Approach from the assessment sediment quality of Florida coastal water. Volumes 1 through 4 to the date of November 1994. Technical report development of cleanup target levels, or CTLS, for the Chapter 62, 777 Florida Administrative Code final report dated February 2005. Guidance for the selection, analytical method of evaluation, practical quantitation limitations, or limits dated October 12, 2004. Element of evaluation, numerical sediment quality assessment guidelines for the Florida inland waters dated with January 2003. Rulemaking authority 37630, 37630, 701, 3763071, 3763078, 3076881, 40361, 4037004, Florida State Law 3763077, 376307001, Florida Statute 3763078, 37681, 403707, Florida Hate Stream News, August 5th, 1999, amended April 17th, 2005. Remember, this is the contamination cleanup target levels for Florida Administrative Codes. Alright, 62.777 150 applicable. The chapter provides with criteria to applicable figures that apply with the site rehabilitation site governed by the terms of the program field with the site rehabilitation agreements pursuant to Chapter 62.785 Florida Administrative Codes. The site rehabilitation pursuant to the Chapter 62.730 of the Florida Administrative Codes hazardous waste and 62.7780 Florida Administrative Codes contain site cleanup criteria and the program specific containments for the concerned site rehabilitation chapter pursuant to Chapter 62.770 the petroleum contamination site cleanup criteria and Chapter 62.782, the Florida Dry Cleaning Solvent Cleanup criteria with the treatment of the soil facilities permitted pursuant to Chapter 62.713, Florida Administrative Codes of the Soil Treatment Facility. The rules chapters identify the specific contamination as of the concern to be addressed. Those rules should be referenced for the use of the application of the table and figures. Chapter 62.770 for the chapter of Florida Administrative Code, Table A of the title Petroleum Product Containment for the concern within identify the specific petroleum product containment of the concern for the use of the site being addressed pursuant to Chapter 62.770 of the Florida Administrative Codes, containment of the concern of the site pursuant to Chapter 67.730 with the 67.780 of the base on the site specific circumstances may include the contamination of the occurrence of not listed the tables of figures contained with the rule Chapter 62.782 of the Florida Administrative Code to Table A with the title of the dry cleaning contamination of the concern identifying the specific dry cleaning contamination of the concern of the use of the site with being addressed with pursuant to Chapter 62.782.2. Florida Administrative Codes contained with the concern of the sites that are governed with the term of the Brownfield Site Rehabilitation Agreement pursuant to Chapter 62.785 of the Florida Administrative Codes based on a specific site. The circumstances may include the other contaminated certain non-listed in the table of figures contained with this rule chapter. Contamination of certain soil treated pursuant to Chapter 62.713 Florida Administrative Codes are based on the type of the soil the facility is permitted to treat as further provided with the substantive provision above the reference rules. The chapter permit contamination level cleanup target levels are default cleanup criteria does not establish a standard pursuant to 62, 302, 62, 520, and 62, 550. Florida Administration Code. Deviation from the default cleanup criteria are allowed if approved by the Department pursuant to the applicable provision of Chapter 62, 713, 62, 730, 62, 770, 62, 780, 62, 782, 62, 785. Florida Administrative Code is not here intended to limit the use of the risk assessment site-specific consideration to establish the CTLs, or the cleanup target levels. Removal authority 3611, 303, 3630, 701, 3630, 701, 363071, 363078, 4307681, 40361, 403704. Laws implemented in 376307001, 3763071, 3763078, 376881, 403707. Florida History News, August 5th, 1990, amended the April 4th. April 17th, August, 2005. And lastly, There's some others like figures in 1 through 10 guidance tables with tables 6 in the groundwater, surface clean water, cleanup target table, tables, and that I'm going to do individually when I can find them. But right now we're just doing the text for 62777 containing cleanup target levels. Groundwater, surface water, and in deriving the groundwater, surface water, the cleanup target level, the methodology presented with the technical report reference in subsection 62777-102 for the Florida Administrative Code utilized. The cleanup target level of contamination found with the groundwater provided in Table 1, the contamination target level of contamination are not to be construed with the created any new water quantity standards pursuant to Chapter 62.520 or the 62.550 of the Florida Administrative Code. Numerical standards are promulgated pursuant to 62.520 Florida Administrative Codes. The cleanup target level is derived using the minimum criteria specified in 62.520 with the Florida Administrative Codes. The cleanup target level of reference in Table 1 is derived with the groundwater with the cleanup target level based upon the minimum criteria specified in the Chapter 62.550 of the Florida Administrative Code. The following factors will be considered calculation using a lifetime excess of the cancer risk of 1.0 E6 for the hazard quotient of 1 or less, the nuisance of organoapplicate aesthetic consideration for contamination not listed in the Table 1 equations provided in Figure 1 and 2. The nuisances of organoleptic and aesthetic consideration may not be used to calculate the current contamination target level for the contamination found in the groundwater for the site for the facility subject for 16, 713, and 730, and 780, and 785 of 62. The cleanup target level of contamination found in the surface water with contaminated groundwater that is discharging into the surface water or that may be discharged from the surface water in the future based with available information. For example, the mounting well data of the ground flow rate of the direction of the flight of the transportation modeling also provided with the Table 1. The controlling target level contamination are not to be construed and created with any new water quality standards pursuant to Chapter 62.302 of the Florida Administrative Codes. Numerical standards propagated with the Chapter 62.302 Florida Administrative Codes. Cleanup target levels derived based on the human health endpoints with the calculated using the Figure 3A with the cleanup target levels derived using the toxicity criteria specified in the Chapter 62.302 Florida Administrative Codes calculated using the Figure 3B with the control target levels referenced in Table 1. The contaminated are not listed in Table 1. The equations provided with the Figure 3 with the methodology provided with the Figure 3B may be used to calculate the cleanup target level of the contamination found in the surface water, grounding water, and the discharging into the surface water and for the sites of the facility subject to Chapter 62.713, 730, and 62.780 and 62.785 Florida Administrative Codes. Tables 4 provide site specification conditions for geochemical parameters that may be used with technical evaluation of the appropriate and natural attention. Table 5 to provide the default source concentration that may be used with the technical evaluation appropriateness of the natural attention. Soil and deriving soil cleanup target levels methodology presented with the technical report reference in subsection 62.777. 102, the Florida Administrative will utilize the controlling control contaminated cleanup target levels for the contaminants found in soil are provided in Table 2 as further provided in the other substantive provisions of those rules chapter. Soil cleanup target levels are contained here and there default criteria. Deviations or default criteria are allowed if approved by the department pursuant to applicable provisions of Chapter 62.713, 62.30, 62.770, 62.780, 62.782, 67.85, and Florida Administrative Codes deriving the clean target level of the human exposure to each of the contaminant found in soil. The following factors were considered with the calculation using a lifetime excess cancer risk of 1.0 E6, the hazard quotient of 1 or less, leachability-based soil cleanup target levels for protection of the groundwater, the surface water derived at the base of the groundwater, surface water of the clean target levels provided in Table 1. These equations provided in Figure 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, and may be used in calculating the clean target levels for contamination found in the soil not listed in Table 2 for the sites and facility subject for the chapters 62.713, 62.730, 62.780, 62.785. Florida Administrative calculates to calculate 2, 3, 7, and 8 and the TCDEDs. Equivalent concentration for the evaluation sample containing the dioxins or furans, the toxic evaluation factors that are the approach that described in the technical report reference in subsection 62.77.102. Florida Administration Code should be used to calculate benzoprine equivalent concentration for the evaluation sample containing stereogenic polyosclitic or aromatic hydrocarbons or toxic equivalent factors approach described in the technical report prescribed reference in subsection 66.77.102 Florida Administrative Code should be used. Alright, we're on 62.77. These are 67.77. I don't know if that's an error or if it's, Table 3 provides soil priorities test method that may be used to determine soil priority of the derivation of the alternative cleanup target levels based on site-specific soil characteristics. For the technical report, reference to subsection 6777-102, Florida Administrative Guidance for the derivation of the alternative cleanup target levels. Table 4 provides default parameters for that may be used from the figures 4, 5, and 7. Rulemaking Authority 376-303, 376-3071, 376-307001, 376-307084, 376-81, 403-61, 403-704, Florida laws implemented 376-3071, 376-307701, 376-307884, 376-81, 403-707, Florida State History News, August 5th, 1999, amended April 17th, 2005. And that takes care of the initial text only for the 6277 contaminating cleanup target levels.